Welcome to Design Diary, the podcast where you get to look inside my board game design notebook as well as what's going on inside my head. We look at a new word each day from the sense of mechanics, tone, theme, or inspiration for a full game. Today's word is
Slumgullion, which means a meat stew. A meat stew. A stew with meat in it. If you don't know a lot about me and my company Button Shy, which I don't love to talk about in here because that's not what this is about. It's not a podcast to promote Button Shy or anything like that. But it's going to come up from time to time because just the me factor. I'm the common link between the two. We just made a game called Stew. So separating myself from that is so difficult. It's a little tiny game where you're throwing cards into a common pot. Once it hits a certain point value, any player can call stew, and it breaks, it doesn't break. It cooks, and you're trying to see if you have enough points to cook the stew, points of ingredients and things like that. So it's really hard for me to separate myself from that, and I did. I was able to do it, but it just, as soon as I saw this word, I said, the only word, it only has two more words than the title of this game, is a meat. So meat is a factor. And I did put that into my little design work here on my notebook. So here's what I have. If I were going to make a game that wasn't about tossing ingredients into the stew, which is essentially the entire game of stew, is tossing them in and kind of bluffing and trying to figure out where you're at on that point scale, I started to think more about just the gathering of the ingredients and then the results of ones that are combined together. If I, combine a certain amount of ingredients, what do I get? It sort of takes you to like a witch potion or a magic potion area, which I'm sort of okay with because they're sort of similar. One just makes your stomach feel good and you're full and your body feels better. The other might make a flying dove out of a flame or something. It might turn someone into a frog, anything like that. So they are different, but they are also similar in some ways. So gathering is a lot of the game. A lot of the game is about, let's just say, moving around a map or a board or whatever, and gathering items, moving around and positioning yourself so you can get animals for meat, growing and maintaining crops, picking vegetables, all while trying to come up with a unique recipe mixture that is both edible and desirable. And that's where I got into a little bit of it's sort of subjective in what's desirable. But if I to pull that away, you have to create somebody and you have to list what their desires are. So generally there's a character card and it says what they like. And if I make that successful or something close to it, I may get points. Maybe the closer I am to it, the more points I get, the further away, the more bad points. So my notes also say that everybody presents their version of the stew or the slumgullion, and then someone is going to eat it. So I imagine a line of, let's say, 4 royals that come out. I'm sort of going back to like a medieval stew, which is the exact premise of our game. But let's say 4 royals come out, and each of them likes a certain thing. Each of them doesn't like a certain thing. And, maybe they have other restrictions. Let's say there's a line of 4 of them, and we have 4 players. Everyone gathers on an earlier part of the round, but now it's time to prepare the stew for these people. You can use whatever items you have and as many of them as you want, and you can maybe even ask for help from your neighbors and things like that. But you have this stew, and you're trying to attract these people your way, and the more ingredients that you can get to attract them, the better. And then I thought it would go, and this is where I thought that it got neat, was that the person who is able to attract somebody the most gets them first. So let's say I have, 4 items that match this character in the middle. The character will then come my way. And then the person with the next lower amount would pull one over, and then the next lower amount, and then the next lower amount. And what I thought was the closer you are to, your goal of these ingredients and this person that you picked, the better the points you get, or the better position you get in the next round, or things like that. And then the worst fit ends up happening as well. Whoever had the least amount in connection with this other person, fails on whatever level of connection and getting them to come to their stew. So I thought that could be a way to, simulate a subjective opinion of which stew is the best, or which stew is interesting to me, and really just giving them some sort of combination and point values and having the players kind of fight for that. Anything that I didn't use this round remains until the next, but there could be some sort of, if needed, dating system to how quickly food goes bad, or something along those lines. It's like a supermarket scanner in a old school medieval kingdom. Anyway, that's pretty much all I had, and I thought the line of characters and trying to match up with them was neat, and some sort of logic built in where the most matches happen first and the least happen last, or something along those lines. But the second take that I had on this, I just want to mention it because I did think it was interesting, and maybe even the better of the two ideas, was that you have a recipe and your goal is to pass it on to the people that are younger than you, so that it will, live on after you. And it's like Stew the Legacy game, or whatever, Slumgullion the Legacy game. But the idea is that I pass it on to my children, and then they will try to improve on it. And every person who gets it, you're going to control over the game many generations of this family and their, pea soup or whatever, or just their stew or their Slumgullion. You're going to change one thing about it to hopefully improve it. And it could be the same way as the other game where, you have these people and they have needs and all. But I don't know if that's the way to go with it. But the idea is that you're going to improve this recipe. So over the years, I improve it, and then I pass it on to the next person. And there's just this kind of like, not like a grid, but a grouping of people going down. And it's going through the years. So I pass it on, I make some changes, I pass it on, I make some changes. I felt like the goal of the game is the first player to change it 100%. To where nothing that remained from the first still remains in the newest. So, and I had that question, like, if everything changed, is it still considered, your great-great-great-great-grandparents' recipe? If nothing remains. At some point, the last thing is pulled out, and then nothing remains from their version. But I thought you would keep, passing it down, adding something new, or changing something, and never reverting back to the old versions. Nothing that was originally there could be there, nothing that was added could be there, or anything like that. I thought what would make it interesting, though, is if the game ended when it was 100% changed. So I don't know how to do that, and I don't know if it's just the same for every player, that you just all change at the same time and eventually hit the goal, or if it's something that's a little, deeper baked into the game, where I can't just change something. I have a bunch of prerequisites to change it, and I got to spend a turn getting those in order to make a big change, or I can go for some small changes. And that's pretty much it. That's where I ended up today. I was struggling because of I'm actually knee deep in the game stew right now, and just having everything done and off to the printers. And so the fact that I got anything out of it is amazing, because it was just, I'm there. There is a game called this. So it was a tricky one. Hopefully you have something, and tomorrow's Friday, and it ends our week of Design Diary, and we'll see you then. All right, bye.